Wayne's World.
What's up? It's Mac Antigua, or it's Wayne Campbell, depending on your perspective. I'm hitting you here from Public Allies National Office in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it's Public Allies Alum Live. We do this every Wednesday, where we feature a Public Allies alum, one of our 5,000 alum from across the network, as well as update you on what's happening throughout the scene. So I'm really excited. Before we get to our special guests, always got to do our check-in on Twitter. We always put out a check-in question to our network. We ask them to check in and share what's happening for them. And so I want to share with you the question we had for our check-in was theme was continuous learning. We asked them, what is something what is an aha moment from this year you've had? And so we had Sandy in Delaware. She shared she learned that she can actually do this grad school thing, and that her experiences have truly prepared her for that opportunity. That's pretty cool. We also heard from Todd Wellman, who is a Milwaukee alum, also a staff alum. He was struck by how deeply someone's sense of already being informed tempers inclusion. So thanks for Todd for sharing that aha as well. And then we got one more I want to share with you. Larry Morris, longtime viewer, a longtime tweeter. He's an Indianapolis alum. He's in San Diego right now. He discovered that he's more resilient than he thought, and he's amazed at God's help as a full-time student and full-time community organizer. Those are folks who have responded. We did that on our Public Allies Twitter tag as well as my tag, hashtag PALumLive, to join in and be part of our national check-in, which is what was your aha moment or something you've learned about yourself so far in 2014. I would love for you to check in, and that's happening all day. So join the check-in. Also, just wanted to share, I had an awesome time in Indianapolis last week at this time. This is why we didn't have Public Allies Alum Live last week, is because I was speaking, I was keynoting for Public Allies Indianapolis and their 5th graduating class. So it was a real pleasure to keynote. That was my first keynote for a PA class, believe it or not. So thanks for giving me that first opportunity, creating space for me to do that, and thanks for letting me personally welcome those alum, new alum to our network. And so we're in the middle of graduation season. So we're really excited. We're actually working on right now a video tribute to the class of 2014. So look for that. My man Raul, that's why he's not even joining us today. Raul Vasquez is in the studio putting together, we took all the photos that were hashtagged Allies14 and putting together a little 3-minute video yearbook to recognize the class of 2014 and welcome them in. So we're excited to hopefully kick that out to you next week. Also, on Monday, we just also kicked out the June update. Just on the nick of time, June 30th. We kicked out our June 30th update on the Alumni Network. So check that out. We've done some cool stuff to bring our network together, and we want to invite you to be part of it. So always just stay updated. And if you didn't get it, then let me know by giving us your best email so we can get it to you. Email me at mcarthura@publicallies.org. All right. Don't bore us, Matt. Get to the chorus. Get to the good stuff. I love telling our alumni story. Like, that's part of our deal. Public Allies Alumni is to advance leadership practice, skills career network, and the impact of our almost now 5,600 alumni of the apprenticeship program, right? And so part of our strategy in this is to let you know who they are, tell their stories. And so that's what we do in Public Allies Alum Live, bring an alum live for you to know and tell their story. And this is we call in the business a great get. I'm excited about having our guest today, and I'm going to introduce him, is Jose Rico. He is a Public Allies Chicago alum from 1995. He's also a staff alum from I think 1996 to 1998, 99 about. So he's not only been a program manager, he was program director at Public Allies Chicago, and then since then has gone on to a pretty fascinating career in public education and improving schools. He helped founded a school in his little village neighborhood. He's worked at the White House as the executive director of White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. He's been the director of the Illinois Center for School Improvement, which is, again, how to raise student performance. And now His new gig is the Senior Vice President of Community Investment at the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago. So this is a guy that I'm a big fan of, and I'm excited to have on. And what's also pretty cool is, real quick, is that he was also on my program team when I was an ally back in Chicago in 1997. So it's so cool to have almost come full circle, all this stuff, and to have him be on the show with us today. And so we're about to bring on, thanks to the wonderful Will Google, my man Jose. How are you?
Hey, how are you, my man?
Smooth. Smooth. Look at this. Look at this. We got like 3 cameras going on there. I love it. Thank you, Erica. Is that Erica? She's a huge help. Thank you so much. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Great thing is that it doesn't work. Someone put that part, right? And you got work at the same time. So now I just got to.
I like it. So we hear you a little bit. Hopefully I'm going to work on getting your sound better. But let me turn up your sound a little bit, and maybe hopefully that'll be a little bit better. So Jose, where are you calling us from?
Lakefront. I am at the offices of the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago. And been there just for 4 months. And I lead other community investments at the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago. So that's where I'm coming from. And
Nice.
Again, what I would love to do is, I can give you my round of this kind of, going around this way, so you'll be able to see kind of where we're back.
I like the 360 view. I appreciate the 360 perspective. Super classy. Your microphone keeps coming in and out, so we're going to keep rolling with it because I hear parts. I was able to hear you say you're calling in from the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago, your palatial offices, your beautiful view. That's where you're at, and you're the Senior Vice President of Community Investment. Before we get into that work, now let's turn back the clock. Let's take us back to 1995. And we got to hear some origin story a little bit. Share me a story. When I say your Public Allies 1995 experience in Chicago, right? Give me a short story that encapsulates what that year was about for you. Was there like a specific experience at your placement, or was there experience on TSP, or what you did? What when you think about it at the time, to somebody, because you're old school, brother, right? You were old school Public Allies. Tell us, like modern Public Allies, those graduated after 2000, like give them a flavor for what that was about.
Back then we were still a ragtag group, right? Where we were still forming a lot of policies that are now in place, thankfully, thank God. I think the biggest, the story I share sometimes about my time in Public Ally was my interview, right? It was one of those very classic interview stories that I think every alum has, and how it made a difference for me. And, it just so happened that when I interviewed an ally, it was myself, it was Beth Hester, it was Liam Posada, and it was Michelle. And, the question that she asked, or the question that was asked was, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years? And, at that time, I thought I was a really smart guy that had some experience and education. And I said, well, it's obvious. What I want to do in 10 years is I'm going to open a school that's about social justice and it's about the people. And Michelle didn't flinch, and she looked at me and she said, that sounds great. What do you need to do to open a school? And I said, damn, I have no idea. So right there, I was like, she was like, well, you need to know that, buddy. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I need to know that. So that was, to me, right the first day, a very good reality check. Things I needed to know.
Jose, when you said, so I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. She asked you, that's great, how are you going to do it? You're like, man, I don't know how that's going to happen, right? Like, and it's so funny you say that because I talked about how I spoke at the Indianapolis graduation, right? And I said to them, the most important phrase that you could probably learn or be good at is saying, I don't know. Because if you say, I don't know, those are good questions, right?
Right.
Those are hard questions. And the reality is how do you respond? And it looked like you were laughing, like, I don't know, man, I want to know. Not like, oh man, I don't know, not resigned. You were like optimistic, like, I don't, let's figure this out. And that sounds like, it was so cool for you to hear that, for me to hear that story, because it sounds like you modeled that. I mean, you carved a career around trying to create better results for all students. Students like yourself who came up through public school, right? Who came up from communities, and so you've dealt with I don't know. Can you tell us some other examples of I don't know that you've addressed at different parts of your career that you've been able to navigate by bringing people on board and like what are some of the things that you've dealt with that were pretty tough I don't knows?
Wow, that's a lot of them. Let me try to narrow it down, right? So, I think a recent one is when I was over in D.C. And one of the things that I was asked early on when I was there in D.C., when the president got elected, one of the promises that he made was to go back and connect with people after the election to figure out how the federal government could be more helpful. And I remember one of my first meetings, no surprise, I was the only Latino in the room at that meeting in education. And one of the questions that was asked was, the Latino enrollment numbers in 2009 and all these different areas, early learning, K-12 graduation, and college graduation, were very low, and they've been very low for 20, 30 years. And one of the first questions I was asked was, well, what do we need to do? What policies that can we implement? What education do we need to do to be able to improve those numbers? And it was one of those points, that I'm sure everybody's had when the question comes up and everybody tends to look at you. And my first reaction was like, what bullshit? Right? Because I'm in this room and I have all of this pressure. What do I say? I don't know. Let's find out. So
Yeah.
Like, look, I've been doing education for about 10 years. I have my own personal experience. But I can't speak to everything and everybody in the Latino community. I don't know. What I propose is that we get a small group of people and go across the country and find out. And I remember being there, and Barney was in the room, and he said, "That's a great answer. Do it. Give me a budget and do it." And so I came up with about 150 cities that I wanted to visit. It took me about 2 years, but I spoke to about 80,000 people, mostly college presidents, governors, aides, high school principals, parent groups, the whole gamut, and came up with a set of recommendations. But the fact that I don't know led me to actually meet the countries, leaders in education across the country. That was another example where I don't know was like, that's great. Let's go find out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that story because it's so authentic, right? Like you didn't want to BS me. We were like, dude, I don't know, man. Let's figure it out. And again, it's like I love that you're name dropping. Arnie said this. Arnie Duncan, right? Assuming you're Arnie Duncan, right? Like Arnie Duncan was like, all right, dude, figure it out. I mean, that's awesome. Based off that, break a myth for me, right? There's perceptions about Hispanic excellence in education. What was a myth that you discovered had to be busted when you did that?
Oh, the myth that's still very pervasive in many places, right? But there's two big ones. One is that the issue, if you deal with bilingual education and immigration, you solve the Latino education issue, right? And I think that's something that's very, what I've learned, that's kind of a northeast, eastern kind of a part of the country type of bias because in those communities, New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago to a certain extent, the Latino presence has only been here for about 100 years. So it's not very much ingrained that they think it's still an immigrant experience and a bilingual education experience. So it's around regular quality education. So that was one myth, right? That, anytime the issue of, well, we solved bilingual education, and then we got the Latino education thing solved. So that was a big one. The second one around that was around the whole issue of, whether Latinos value education, right? One of the big things that we always get into discussions is, well, even if we do quality education, Latino families are not going to want to send their kids to college because they have such a strong family connection that college is really not the top of their list, right? And which is totally the opposite. I mean, the reality is, and it's starting to prove by the numbers, is that it's not people wanting to go to college. The reality is the information and the pathway to go to college is so complicated that if you don't have that family background, or that you're not successful in college somewhere in your family isn't successful in college, you're not going to know how to navigate it. So it's one of those things where the information and the having somebody who's done it and being able to navigate the complexities of the application, the ACT test, the financial aid, so all of that is easily get synthesized sometimes by folks saying, well, families don't really place college and educational success as a high priority. And my thing is like, no, that other stuff is so damn complicated. And it's really difficult to navigate if you don't have that background, if you don't have that experience within your family.
Wow. So what I'm hearing you say was that there's been a fixation on bilingual education, right? We're focusing on a method when really there's other things we could have been focusing our time on, right? So that was one of the myths. And the second myth that you were busting was, it's not that Latino families don't value education. It's just familiarity with the processes is so intimidating and different unless you've been through it. And so it may show, the numbers may reflect that we have low numbers of Latinos in school, but it's not because they don't want it, but rather it's a foreign concept, right? It's not a thing. So those are some of the myths that you, during your time at the White House, you've helped demystify or continue to demystify.
Right, and even though I'm not there, I'm so glad that the First Lady. That's basically the issue she's taken on this year. It's around first-time college enrollment, right? So and again, and it's not just Latinos, even though we are the biggest group that has the first-time college enrollment, but all non-traditional students, veterans, all types of non-traditional students. That's a huge challenge.
Yeah. Jose, can you tell me, you had this awesome opportunity not only to work in community, and you helped build a school from scratch, and you were part of an effort that invited Arnie Duncan to be a better partner in Chicago to make a school happen through community organizing and all that. So, when I look at your story narrative, like, you are a classic example of everyone leads. Like, you model that. I would love to hear what was your experience like at a level trying to bring that flavor. I heard that there was some support for, like, go figure out what the people want. But could you sort of think about your time in community in that public ally type space? Like, what were some of the nuances of having to function in a federal, right, in a governmental vibe? Like, were there myths about that, or were there surprises about that? About having to adapt that skill set into that environment.
Oh yeah, dude, it was huge. I mean, from day one, it was everything was new and surprise, and every day it was like, why don't we do it this way, and how come we do it, and what if we try doing it this way, and I learned a lot about why government works the way it works, and a lot of it makes sense, but I also learned that there's so much disruption that could happen that's good for government that I feel that I played a very small role in it, and I think had some positive outcomes. I mean, just the fact that we were able to give out huge, the largest amount of federal dollars in education to nonprofits in the history of the federal government, combined all the federal grants that were given before we were there, combine all those federal grants that were given to nonprofits in the country, it dwarfed the amount that we did in our first term. Our amount we did in our first term dwarfed, it's way surpassed that. And to me, the fact that we actually did it in a way that asked for more rigorous results on the ground is, I think, there's some criticism obviously around how we measure and the standards that we set to get those results. But also, many people on the ground will tell you that the fact that, and again, I'm speaking primarily about the nonprofits, the fact that they were able to leverage, $20 million for private neighborhood grants, $500 million for early learning, $200 million to improve teacher certification of Latino, African American, Native American teachers. I mean, those are the type of things that when you talk about the scale, it's really about the scale that the federal government was able to do in our communities, the impact that it was able to have. Where public allies serve, I would be challenged to think, there's probably not many cities that we have public allies now that there isn't a federal grant to try to address the same issues that our allies are working on.
Right. Nice. I got a couple more for you, man. Let's talk about the current gig. Back in the shot, back home. What's different from you now that you've gone to that at that federal level back to Chicago, and that informs your work now in community investment in the United Way? From my own personal understanding, I would say United Way has been very intentional about being more externally facing and relevant. They've been doing an evolution. And I gotta say, man, on face value, the Jose I knew, I don't think I've ever imagined him working at a United Way. I'm like, Jose at United Way? They never thought they'd let you in the White House either. So in that way, you get surprised, right? Surprised. Give me a flavor of sort of like the opportunity that you see in this position. And again, let's break some myths of what some people think of the United Way and where you envision your work doing.
No, so I appreciate you prefacing that, Matt, but I got to tell you, I've been kicked out of better places now that I've
We're not talking about shelter or the warehouse, man. We're not talking about those places.
So, I'm actually very lucky that I'm in the United Way right now, where there is this huge transition. I've actually done some research around the United Way around the country, and actually the one that I'm the most impressed with is the United Way Milwaukee. I think that's what I would hope that's the direction that I want to take is really based on work in Milwaukee. So if you have any connections there, I would love to follow up and spend some time up there in Milwaukee soon. And I think a lot of it is that you're right. I mean, so we're United Way right now is going from a traditional model of being kind of the charity organization and looking at results by the number of people that you serve and really doing things because it makes people feel good, to really becoming more strategic about leveraging money to work within communities, bringing all the diverse players around the table, including governments and other funders, and looking at the change in people's lives as the end result, not just whether we serve kids in an after-school program. So for me, that's the really exciting part. Right now, I'm working to really make that change. And I got to tell you, it feels good to be back home and to be working with fellow allies in many respects that were in the program with me or graduated from the program here in Chicago, and be able to help them do their work. So I really see myself now, given the experience that I recently had, both as a high school principal and over in the White House office, to really be able to see not just on the ground, have on the ground experience, but when I went to those 150 cities, I was able to see how learned is that we know how to solve almost every problem that we have in our communities. The issue is how do we do that in our own communities? And I'm really excited about having the opportunity to do that here with people that I know in my home, with dollars that I can leverage, not just the United Way dollars, but other government, state and federal dollars.
I think what's really awesome about that story is that we got 650 people graduating from Public Allies in 23 cities this apprenticeship year, right? Which is a big number compared to when back in the day when I was an ally, much less before. When you were an ally and they did timesheets on stone tablets and you had to wheel in, right? Wheelbarrow. But hearing your story, right, is exciting because these people are watching or they're going to learn your story and go, wow, 20 years from now, I'm going to be still working with these folks that I was in this experience with, right? And that sounds like that's happened for you, right? Like it's still real. The people that you met either in your class or they were in the class ahead of you or behind you, like that's tangible. Those relationships you built 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I know you say this a lot, communication to the allies and relationships are going to be, and the only change I will make is how important they are, right? There's very few places that I've been able to go to, here in Chicago, where there is an instant connection of background. Again, when I spoke at the commencement here for the Allies in Chicago last week, one thing that I told them was like, look, this experience is shaping leadership within your community. And so when I meet with other allies, we have a shared leadership experience. And so being able to communicate, being able to say language, being able to understand where we want to go, reference the shared leadership experience that we have is successful because, it's important because that's a great way for us to ensure success because we know kind of what we want to get at because we've been there and have a similar experience, so that allows us to get there a little quicker and actually to be a little bit more creative.
Right on. Thanks so much, for taking the time to visit with us today, but also to continue to practice, the style of leadership that's inclusive, that focuses on community strengths, right, and that's collaborative. Obviously you're on staff, obviously you're an ally, but continue to model that. So thanks so much for taking time to visit with us. And I guess one thing I want to leave on is give me something that you discovered about you. I want you to check in and hold it up. What is something that surprised you that you learned about yourself in 2014? Have you had an aha moment? Close us out by playing our check-in game here.
So I asked you also something that surprised me about what?
About maybe like a discovery or learning about yourself in 2014 that's an aha.
Oh man, 2014, that's an aha. Damn it, that's a good one. I think something is that, since I started here, I've been in a very high pace, high adrenaline environment, here, so I'm trying to catch up. And I was so glad to leave that high pace, high adrenaline environment. Something that I started to think about recently is like, am I just addicted to that type of work environment? That's something that I really like doing, and being in that type of environment. And, as a high school person, and being in DC, and it's tough work, it's exhausting. But I'm starting to think that I must like it because I keep doing this shit.
That was such a classic Jose comment. I can't. Man, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jose Rico with us. Jose, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks for being a champion for us. Keep doing the work, man. Thanks so much. Jose Rico. Stick around every Wednesday. We're going to come back. We got a triple threat next week. We have 3 alums joining us to talk about social innovation and their work with it. But in the meantime, keep up with us. Check us up on Twitter. Look for the hashtag PLM Live. Look for the emails and stay engaged in the network. And hopefully you'll get connected to folks like Jose. In the meantime, this is Mac and T was signing off. This was live. We'll talk to you next week, everybody. Take care.